Leave it to Shohei Ohtani to steal the show on Dalton Rushing's debut.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. This is a daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. I'm Vince Samperio. That's Jeff Snider, and we've been doing Locked On Dodgers since 2019. We've been covering the Dodgers in our own ways for over a decade. We've been watching the Dodgers our entire lives. Today, we're going to talk about Dalton Rushing's debut. In the next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about how the bullpen's getting handled right now in the last segment. But the Dodgers scored 19 runs. Dalton Rushing made his debut, got his first 2 major league hits. But it was Shohei Ohtani who stole the show because Shohei Ohtani shows up when it's his bobblehead night, just like the fans show up for him on those bobblehead nights.
Yeah, he didn't homer on his first bobblehead night with the Dodgers last year, but then he did on his second one, and he has now on both this year. Obviously, the walk-off home run in the first one this year, and now a 2 home run night, 2 homers, 6 RBIs. I think he likes the spotlight. He's built for that Hollywood lifestyle or whatever it is. Shohei Ohtani, hashtag good at baseball, I guess.
Yeah, he 2 homers, 6 RBI, and starting to get those hits with runners on base because lo and behold, the bottom of the order is starting to get on base when they've had Ha-Seong Kim down there, Dalton Rushing now down there, and they're in theory Michael Conforto starting to hit. Like the Dodgers are starting to shape up and getting their lineup longer, and Shohei Ohtani is going to reap the benefits of that most of the time because he's going to come up with guys on and he does damage. Even though he started a little slow, it's just because he didn't have that many tries.
Yeah, he's now at 15 homers and 28 RBIs, which is getting much closer to the ratio we're looking for. Last year, it was more of a like 2.5 to 1, I think, and now we're getting close to 2 to 1. And so, and over the last couple of weeks, it's gone up a lot. And so, yeah, with this bottom of the lineup, that obviously we're going to talk about Dalton Rushing in the next segment, and that's one of the things we're excited about the bottom of this lineup. Ha-Seong Kim, like you said, Conforto getting going. It's going to give Ohtani these chances, and you don't have to come through every time. I mean, he got out 3 times tonight, but he also came through big. And when you hit a couple big home runs with guys on base, easy way to pad that RBI total. And yeah, it kind of feels like everything's right with the world when Ohtani's hitting home runs with runners on base.
Yeah, that's where Ohtani kind of took off it last year, started the season not hitting with runners in scoring position. This year, like I said, did struggle. Was at one point last week he was hitting like 143 with runners in scoring position, but it wasn't even 30 at bats yet. I think he was in the 20 to 22 range. And since then, he's had a lot more opportunities with runners on base. He had the big home run in Arizona. He had a couple home runs tonight. He's been able to do it. He's been able to get to it. And this is the thing. The more chances Shohei Ohtani has with runners on base, the more times he's going to come through for you. And I know you talked about it a few days ago, like Ohtani's inevitable. And even though he hasn't always been inevitable, we're going to remember the times that he did come through, like these bobblehead nights.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's good that you bring up last year when people were panicking. It's like, how come he can't with runners in scoring position? Because he had like 1 or 2 hits very early in the season in that Cardinals series. And then it was like 0 for his next 19. And they're like, this guy's a bust. This guy's a bust. And I don't know if you heard, but Shohei Ohtani 2024 ended up not exactly being a bust. And so, I mean, you just got to be patient with this dude because he's just so ridiculously good. So much fun to watch, even striking out against a position player. He ambushed him with an 89-mile-an-hour fastball, and hey, good on that guy. But even that was fun to watch.
Hey, if you were to lose focus in a 19-2 game in an at-bat against a position player, wouldn't hold it against you. Ohtani didn't. You know, it just matter. He just got beat that time. Probably wasn't expecting it. But, yeah, I mean, it's – he's already show time. He's already box office. Even if you're not fully paying attention to a Dodger game, when Ohtani comes up, you know, you probably pay a little bit more attention, especially knowing that Mookie and Freddie are coming after him. So, yeah, I mean, he's got 2 more bobblehead nights this year. So, and he's also got his ring giveaway. So maybe that's going to count towards that. And, maybe he'll have a couple more big nights.
Yeah, I hope so. Overall, the offense, I mean, Ohtani obviously led the charge with the 6 RBIs, but Muncy had 4 RBIs. Podges had 3 RBIs. Everybody in the starting lineup had at least 1 hit, even though 3 of them only played 3 innings or so.
Yeah, 3 innings.
I love the line change in the 4th inning. It's like, all right, let's get everybody out of there. And, it was kind of surprising that Kim wasn't one of the ones who came out, since he did jam his fingers on that slide, but that was good to see him stay in the game. And overall, you just look like up and down this lineup, the runs scored, like they have 6 different guys scored multiple runs in this game, led by Hae-Sung Kim, who scored 4 runs. Dalton Rushing scored 3 runs in his big league debut. Outman scored 3 runs. Outman scored 3 runs. That means he was on base 3 times. Like, I mean, why did we lead with Ohtani? James Outman scored 3 runs, Vince.
Yeah, that is true. He's a guy that the jokes are flying right now with, the news of the Austin Barnes DFA, and Max Muncy was saying, I'm not, people are saying he's not next. He's going to take advantage. Chris Taylor is probably a guy that's going to get talked a lot about in that realm, just depending, when Edman and Teo come back and when the Dodgers have to make that decision. But yeah, ultimately, it was a night where everything went right, but it's not uncommon for this to happen with some of these new guys in the lineup. Hae-Sung Kim, is he going to eventually cool off? Yeah, I don't think he's going to hit 385 the rest of the season. But, once he's on base, there's a presence there. The pitcher's got to think about him a little bit. He's taking off. He seems like he has a green light from Roberts and co. Anytime he's on base, Ohtani gets to reap that. Mookie, gets to use the chip on his shoulder. Mookie doesn't get many chips on his shoulder anymore at this point, but he still gets it when, Ohtani gets intentionally walked. Freddie's been on fire, and if they can, get Will Smith, Dalton Rushing as a combination now at catcher, and then, Max Muncy starts hitting, and, Conforto slowly but surely gets there eventually. Like, this is looking like the Dodger world beaters that we were waiting for.
Yeah, when we get Teoscar and Edman back, like, with all these guys who are starting to get hot, and it's not, you don't need everybody to be flaming hot. Even when Kim cools off a little bit, he's still going to be a guy who can get you a hit. It's not going to be that black hole at the bottom of the lineup, and same with Conforto. Yeah. He's not a world beater right now, but he's been doing better, and he's hitting the ball harder. And so at least when it comes up, you think, hey, there's a chance something could happen right here. Max Muncy's getting to that point. That's all you really hope for. We talked about it last year, early in the season, when it was Outman and Vargas who were kind of was that last year or 2 years ago?
2 years ago?
I can't. Yeah. 2 years ago. And we talked a little bit about that, the excitement of those guys, and obviously they both fell off a cliff, and hopefully that won't happen to these guys. But that's all you really ask for from the bottom of this lineup. You go back to 2021, I think, when Gavin Lux was batting 9th. And he was the best 9-hitter in baseball, and that was so huge for setting things up for Mookie and Freddie and Trey at the top of the lineup. And the Dodgers' top of the lineup is even better now than it was then. And so if we can get that bottom of the lineup doing something for us, it's just gonna, like, it's crazy. The Dodgers are on pace for like 107 wins or whatever, and you can still say I guess maybe they've hit their stride in this game, but overall, like, they haven't played as well as they should have, and yet they are on pace for 107 wins, and that's why coming into the season everybody was so high on them, because they don't have to be their best to be the best.
Yeah, and there's a lot more offense that's coming with, like you said, with Teo and Edman, and then the pitching. There's a lot more coming, which we'll talk about kind of how they're going to navigate that in the last segment. But Dalton Rushing, MLB debut, Dodgers put up 19. He gets a couple hits. He scores 3 times. He'll get to tell his kids that the first time he scored a run in a Major League game was because of Shohei Ohtani. We're going to talk about him and kind of what we see for him moving forward. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. If you ever decided to head to a ball game last minute with friends or family, it's game day. You want to be in the stands. You saw Dalton Rushing was going to make his Major League debut and you wanted to be there for that, then that's where Game Time comes in because it's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views so you can see where you're going to sit, and a lowest price guarantee that takes out the worry of buying. Why spend all that money on tickets when you can spend it on tickets and food and drinks and merch, or even invite a friend, whatever you want to do. Game Time is official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app and check out which Dodger game you want to go to next. There are a lot of bobbleheads next week when Arizona's in town. The Angels are in town this weekend for what MLB is calling rivalry weekend. Whatever you want to get into, Game Time is there. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to check out Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB account. Well, you'll see us sometimes talking about the Dodger game, and you might see Jeff on tomorrow's because there was only a handful of games, and the Dodgers put up 19 runs. 3 of those runs scored by Dalton Rushing in his Major League debut. There's a lot to get into here, but I guess first thoughts, Jeff. I mean, he starts off with a great plate appearance and a walk, a great at-bat to get his first hit, picks up another hit later on. It was, other than a home run, almost all you could ask for.
Yeah, I'm jealous that you got to be there. Watching him and Matt Sauer walk in from the bullpen, it reminded me of 19 years and 10 days ago when I was sitting there in the stadium for Russell Martin's debut. And, highly touted catcher. And I just happened to I had tickets to that game. I had come down from Utah and with my wife, who had only been married to a little bit. She didn't totally understand what she'd gotten herself into yet at that point. And then who was it? What was the name of that catcher who got hurt to make room? And they called up Russell Martin. He ended up going to the Rays later. I can't remember his name right now. He ended up being an all-star later, but I was just excited that he got hurt.
Navarro?
Yeah, Deoner Navarro. Because I was excited to see Russell Martin's debut and at the game we happened to be at. That's what it reminded me of. And I was jealous of you tonight. And I know a lot of people who were at the game, obviously a big game with that bobblehead night. And so a lot of people were there for that. And they happened to get to see this debut. And yeah, that first at bat kind of showed how confident he is in the box. One of our everydayers, Mike Markham, AKA Jackson's dad, was texting me during the game and mentioned, just how confident Rushing looks. And I told him, I saw him playing for the Quakes in low A 3 weeks after he got drafted or whatever. He already looked like that. Like the dude just.
They asked Roberts about Rushing before the game and, kind of what he thought or whatever. And he said, I think Rushing thinks he could have been here the day after he signed, after he got drafted.
That's the way he's always played. And he backs it up. I mean, the Dodgers hit 5 home runs, and I think the hardest hit ball of the game was Dalton Rushing's first major league hit, 110 miles an hour up the middle, and then hit another one 100 miles an hour for a second hit, an infield single. Just the dude can hit. And like we talked about yesterday, me and Clint and Doug, I think Dave Roberts said all the right things about, yes, he's going to be our backup catcher. He's just going to play a couple times a week. But if Dalton Rushing hits, they're going to find at bats for him. Whether that is saying, all right, Conforto, why don't you take a day off once in a while? You can move Pages back and forth. So Pages can have a day off once in a while. Teo can have a day off once in a while. Freddie Freeman can have a day off once in a while. I think they'll find at bats for him if he, and it is one game. We have to say it's just one game. Maybe he'll look terrible tomorrow, but like
there's a threat. There's a threat now. When Will Smith's not playing catcher, there's a threat at the plate.
Yeah, absolutely. And and it's not just the results. Like you can watch somebody and say, okay, yeah, he got good results, but like even Haesung Kim with what he's doing right now, like I wouldn't go into a game confident that Kim's going to hit the ball hard 4 times. Dalton Rushing, I probably would,
Yeah, there's a lot to like with the swing, with the plate, with the approach, with all that stuff. Yes, it is one game. Yes, it was, not the A's best pitchers. They don't have too many great pitchers anyways, but that's besides the point. But like I said, there's a threat now. Roberts, before the game, kind of said he's not really wanting to go Smith 3 days in a row too often if he doesn't have to. But when your alternative was Austin Barnes and your bottom of the lineup was struggling, you kind of had to push Will Smith and Barnes, okay, once a week. They got lucky in that first month. If that first month had been like May, where there's not a lot of days off, we might even seen Rushing before that. But now, that they're getting into the nitty-gritty of the schedule, they realize, Smith, maybe even Smith, I doubt he's said anything like I would like more rest, or rest would be cool. But now you don't have to worry. Like even if Smith's red hot and you give him a day off, you're not worried about, well, the best I'm going to get is a bloop single into left field.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was nice of Rushing to strike out looking one time just to pay homage to Austin Barnes, I guess. But then beyond that, yeah, it's a threat, like you said. And that's all you can really ask for from your backup catcher is give us a chance of doing something good.
And on the catching side, I mean, it ended up working out for him. He got to catch two of the 3 pitchers he's caught before already this year in Oklahoma City. Had it been more of a bullpen game, I know there was a lot of questions about that, but if you've ever seen a minor league game, there's not a lot of pitchers going that deep into games, especially, early in the season for the Dodgers. So bullpen game is right up his alley.
Yeah, one of our insiders was asking me this morning, is it weird that they're throwing Dalton Rushing in a bullpen game? And I'm like, yeah, you look at how Oklahoma City's been running their pitching staff this year. I'd say Dalton Rushing has more recent relevant experience than Will Smith when it comes to catching a bullpen game. Like you said, they end up only using 3 pitchers, and we're going to dig into that a lot in the next segment. That this quasi bullpen game, but yeah, I mean, it was probably nice for him that Matt Sauer and Justin Robleski, they threw 8 of the 9 innings, and they're guys who he's caught in the minor leagues. He knows them, he's familiar with them. But yeah, he looked good back there. Even he only made 1 throw down. It ended up being a ball 4, so it wasn't actually a stolen base, but it was a good throw he made to second. He looked confident back there. 1 pop-up that he caught, just kind of the basics. But all in all, a catcher is kind of like a home plate umpire. The less you notice him, the better he is probably. And you didn't really notice him on defense at all.
Yeah, I know. I think a couple people mentioned like the yanking method, and there was an article that came out recently about how that actually works these days with umpires. So, he's a guy that probably came up framing his entire career that kind of way, that style. It's relevant for now, probably won't be relevant beyond this season if they end up moving on to ABS system or whatever. But yeah, for him, this is, I think Fabian wrote an article in The Athletic about kind of the Dodgers have been handling him, ever since spring training, being in on the meetings, either building out some of those plans for the meetings. I asked Roberts, if he told them anything before his debut. He said not really, but he did say in yesterday's game, they were, Rushing would come up and talk to Roberts during an inning, and they would kind of talk about matchups and which guys are going to see tomorrow, and kind of how they would attack that. Kershaw gave him praise, but I think earlier in the season or in spring, about his way of handling the pitching staff and going about his business. So it seems like he's doing all the right things from everyone else that's telling us, and that's just gets you more excited because you're like, all right, cool. Like we knew he could hit, but if he can handle this part of it as well, that's a big benefit.
Yeah, the Dodgers clearly understand what they have in Dalton Rushing, and I know it's been frustrating for a lot of fans that he didn't get called up sooner. But I mean, even when we were calling for the end of the Austin Barnes era, it wasn't necessarily for Dalton Rushing. It was like, well, let's get Hunter Fiducia up. But kind of, I think this timing, it's like they got to the point where development-wise, we know he's ready for the big leagues. So now there's no reason leaving him AAA, even if he doesn't get to play full time. Even in OKC, they've got 3 catchers. Chris Oakey and Hunter Fiducia are getting starts too, and so it's not like he's playing every day down there either. And so get up there. We say it all the time. There's some things about playing in the big leagues you can only learn by playing in the big leagues, and that's the stage of Dalton Rushing development we're at. It's time to learn on the job, to do this with the big guys. Learn from Will Smith. Learn from Clayton Kershaw. Learn from all these guys who've done it. Learn from Mark Pryor. And go become the stud that you're supposed to be. I think I'm actually a pretty big fan of how the Dodgers have handled Dalton Rushing.
Yeah, he's 24 years old right now. There was not much more the development got to a point where what are you developing him for? To get traded really would be the only thing to keep him down there that long. Realistically, he's going to be, Will Smith's backup at the moment, and maybe there comes a time where that forces he plays so well that maybe the Dodgers think about putting Smith at a different, there's a lot of different questions, or maybe you do want to try Rushing more in the outfield because he is hitting so well. There's a lot of stuff to do that he can push that conversation, and hopefully that's what we get to see. So,
I just noticed that the Dodgers have now passed the Cubs for most runs scored in baseball. And they played the same number of games. So they are 257 runs scored. I saw that. I noticed BC mentioned in the chat they're on pace for almost 950 runs. They've scored 257 runs, and the Cubs are at 244. So tonight, push them past them.
Yeah, putting 33 runs in that one D-backs game and this game. Well, that'll help out for sure.
Yep, most runs scored in baseball.
Yeah, and one of the benefits was the bullpen game was a success for the Dodgers because they got to not use any of their major arms. But now there's a question of how are they going to handle this pitching staff going forward, because there's a lot of questions and a lot of injuries. So we're going to talk about that. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, getting toward the end, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Live betting is the big thing. The Indiana Pacers, who are now in the Eastern Conference Finals, they've been down by 19 points in 5 of their postseason games, and they've won 3 of them. Now, if you couldn't live bet a game and you bet whoever they were playing against, you would have been like, oh, man, my bet lost. But with live betting, you said, oh, Pacers are down 19. They've been here before. They're going to come back and win. And boom, that's how you get yourself getting that big money, getting those big bucks. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up right now. You head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If that bet wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, an everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. We appreciate those of you that are everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, very easy to become one. If this is your first time listening or watching, become an everydayer. We're in season. We're talking Dodgers. There's no reason not to. And if you want to go, everydayer plus, you become a Locked On Dodgers insider. You go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You get text directly from us, keeping you up to date with all the latest Dodger news, and you get an invite to our Discord server where we can talk Dodgers with other Dodger fans. All right, Jeff, Dodgers had it was supposed to be a bullpen game on Thursday. It ended up working out for them. Matt Sauer took down 4 innings. Justin Robleski, who got called up earlier in the morning, took down 4 innings. They had Anthony Banda in between throwing inning. And the Dodgers are heading into the weekend with a rested bullpen. But it's a little bit of a weird bullpen right now with all the movement. And with Clayton Kershaw coming back on Saturday, that fills a rotation slot. But they still have a rotation slot that needs to be definitively filled. They could go with a 6-man rotation, which would be, probably a piggyback or somebody that's not necessarily a starter going in that 6th spot right now. Ben Kasperius is one of their best leverage guys, but also one of their best guys that can throw multiple innings. There's a lot going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And they, Dave Roberts did say that Landon Knack is probably the leader in the clubhouse to be the 5th starter, which makes sense just experience-wise. Obviously, Landon Knack doesn't thrill anybody right now, but you don't necessarily need your fifth starter to thrill you. If he can keep him in a ball game, that's good enough. But you look at their upcoming schedule. They're 3 games now into 9 days in a row of playing, and then a day off, and then 6 straight games, and then a day off, and then I think 13 straight days, a homestand followed by a road trip without days off in between, and then a day off, and then 9 or 10 straight days. So I mean, there's not a ton of days off coming up. Like we talked about earlier, they're past that part of their schedule. There's a ton of days off. I guess maybe one good thing, not a good thing, but the fact that Roki Sasaki is on the IL right now, he's one of the main reasons they were doing the 6-man rotation. Obviously, Yamamoto is another one, but I don't know that it's as important with Yamamoto as it is with Roki. And so maybe they are more willing to go with a 5-man rotation sometimes. But this game tonight, just when you do have so many potential starters sitting in AAA, and you can bring them up and back and forth. And so, if Landon Knack is a 5th starter, and then you do have the option of a 6th starter quasi bullpen game, piggyback, whatever you want to call it, a game like tonight, where Matt Sauer and Justin Robleski take down the bulk of the innings. Both of these guys were in AAA 3 days ago, but now here they are. I guess Sauer, it's been a week, but you get the point. And Robleski might be back in AAA tomorrow, depending on what they do. Somebody's going to have to go down when Kershaw comes back on Saturday. So maybe they just wait till then, since they do have their high leverage arms available. But, Robleski's probably going back to the minors at some point. But then, 15 days after that, they could call him back up again. And Sauer can go down, and so then when you've got Ben Kasparis and Jack Dreyer in your big league bullpen, both whom can take down multiple innings, a bullpen game with this team as it's currently constructed doesn't need to be an 8 or 9 pitchers guy. It can be, I don't know that we could get away with 3 pitchers like today. That was the benefit of scoring 19 runs, and maybe they should just do that all the time. But
Sauer's been a part of the last 2 of the times they've had big leads. So.
He's the opposite of Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Sauer gets that run support. I'm intrigued by that. At least, maybe not every time through the rotation, but every other time, throw in this piggyback kind of game. I know fans don't get excited about bullpen games, but if you time it right, maybe they looked at, this Beto guy who's pitching for the A's, he's pretty bad. We could probably have our pretty good chances to have an easy bullpen game that game. I don't know if they'd get that granular at like looking at matchups, but it seems like something like that might be necessary until they do have a 6th starter available.
Yeah, last week I was, on one of the solo episodes, and I was talking about how Dodgers pitching was in a tough spot, and eventually it was going to come to a head, whether positively or negatively. And at this moment, it's been positive ever since then. They've gotten some games where they saved their bullpen thanks to Matt Sauer and the offense putting up a lot of runs. They've had a lot of their starters go at least into the 6th inning, if not through the 6th inning. And, they've been able to manage it so far. And that's where we're at now. Like, they're able to push guys. They've pushed some guys, to go a little bit more than maybe they would want to. They let Knack face, the lineup a 3rd time. The other day, they let May go deep into a game when he against the Cubs went like early on when he wasn't pitching very well, but he was giving them up efficiently at least, and he was able to pitch into the 6th inning. And that's one of those things where those benefits of now, okay, you're going to get the extra day off. We're going to push you maybe a little bit, and hopefully the offense can help out in that regard where you get a little bit of a cushion, and it all kind of works out. But yeah, the Dodgers right now, like you look at their bullpen. Kirby Yates is the main leverage guy throwing righty. They have a lot of lefties because of Dreyer, Bonda, Vesia, Tanner Scott. But then when you go back to righties, like Ben Kasparis is that next leverage guy, which I think is why they pulled him out of being one of those guys that like they said he could start, and then all of a sudden he wasn't going to start anymore. And that's why, because he's the next guy in line when you need a right-handed pitcher late in the game.
And I love Kasperius so much as a reliever. I am so fine with it. Like, I love that he can start when they need him to. I love Ben Kasperius as a reliever. I don't know if I'm irrationally high on him or just the right amount of high on him, but I love him there. But yeah, I do think a big part of this will be the offense making it possible to say, okay, you know what, Luis Garcia, you go throw 3 innings for us. Hey, Noah Davis, you're going to come up and throw 4 innings for us and then go back down. And Ryan Lotus, you'll get your shot at some point. All these guys, even JP Fireeisen. JP Fireeisen could have pitched in this game and not lost the game for him. And so there's the offense stepping up, which hopefully they will, especially with Teo and Edman returning, will be big for this team. Give them maybe not 19-2 games very often, but give us a good 10-3 every once in a while where we can go with our low leverage guys, where even Yoendrys Gomez couldn't have blown the lead. And, that would help the bullpen out a lot too.
Yeah. The offense, obviously a key part of it. Starting pitchers going in, to the 6 innings, a big part of it. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But there are some updates on some of those other right-handed leverage guys. Blake Treinen is cleared to start throwing a baseball, so he's going to do that soon. It's probably going to be a while anyway before he's back, but at least he's pain free. Robert said he did ask him directly if he's pain free. Blake Treinen said yes. Mike Kopech's still working, on his rehab assignments. I'm sure they're going to want him to go back to back and check all those boxes before he gets back. Evan Phillips has not picked up a ball yet, so that's might be a little bit of a while. And on the starting front, guys now Snell are continuing to push their throwing progressions. It's going to be a while for them, but every so often we say help's on the way. I don't know how close we are with a lot of these guys, but if the Dodgers can just keep holding on, I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, and tied for the best record in baseball, despite all of these challenges. So the best is yet to come with this team. I really believe that.
Yeah, and the team in the American League that's pushing them is the Tigers, who they swept to start season. So
yep, which I guess means the Tigers have played better than the Dodgers, other than that series. But you know what? There's no such thing as other than.
Yeah. So all right, Jeff. Like I said, big night, big win, a lot to be happy about. Now it's a rivalry weekend with the Angels coming to town.
I love this rivalry. Yeah, I just get so fired up.
Fired up about the rivalry. Kenley Jansen coming back to Dodger Stadium. It would be, I don't know. I've seen him give up a lot of home runs recently, but none of them were in actual safe situations. So I guess that's still an issue for him. But yeah, I mean, Dodgers should handle the Angels. The Angels are not very good.
Yeah. Return of Kenley, return of Kershaw. One of those I'm really looking forward to. And the other one, and we've seen Kenley since he left the Dodgers. So, but Kershaw coming back on Saturday, that's what I'm excited for.
Yeah, they asked them, Dylan Hernandez asked them, you've been smiling a lot more this last week. Is there a reason for it? And, we've talked about Kershaw softening up for a couple years now. And I think, he realizes where he's at. He realizes what it is. And they did ask him, how do you feel about coming back in the time when they kind of need you? And he said, I hope it wouldn't have been that way. But, that's just the way it is. We do kind of need a guy to throw some innings right now. And that's what Kershaw is. They asked him about 3,000 strikeouts. And he said he's worried about Saturday first and not worried about anything else. So that's the Kershaw. That's the Kershaw answer if there was one.
Yeah, Kershaw is pretty good at Kershaw answers.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us via podcast and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. Make sure to check out Locked On MLB Game Night, part of the Locked On MLB YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. Get your local analysis on a national scale, and you'll see our faces on there sometimes. So check that out. You go beyond the podcast on Locked On Dodgers by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us and join our Discord server. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car. If you're at home, text my device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you on Sunday.